Hey, welcome back. What I'm hoping for is you look through this video. You have the actual broker requirements in front of you. Take lots of notes as we go through. Take them directly on the form. And I'll let you know that what I'm working on today is with Remind Docs Plus. And a lot of this information as you go to fill it out will automatically be into the document itself. Now, also know that the broker requirements is this. It is a document to, in brevity, through 3 pages, tell everybody involved in the transaction what they need to know. So they can look concisely at what they need to know. It captures everything. So this is a document that, yes, it will go with our admin. It will be in the file. Our brokers will be able to use this. But remember, it's also, we can send this to a mortgage person. We can send this to the title company. We can send it to the other broker. This information is a catch-all. So talk with your broker manager and find out how they may use it, who they may send it to. But in the end, know that it is about catching all parties. Now, this is about the transaction. There's 2 times when you might start and then complete this broker requirements. One up front would be with you take a new listing and we're going to cover or carry out completing up to the point where it says pending. It could be that we then have that house sold, that listing would sell, and we would complete the remaining 2 pages. It could be that we actually start with, we're on the buying side. And on the buying side, we have a pending, we're going to have a closing, and of course now there is a listing and all of the listing information needs to be completed. So need that understanding as we now will go through this and talk about what goes in or what's filled in all of the blanks. So again, this may fill in automatically through the MLS, but if not, put the information in as you go. If this is your listing, did you fax or email the title company? If so, the date, same thing. If this is your sale, did you fax and send everything over for the title company? CBP, is this a co-list or a co-sale? Were you a transaction coordinator? And again, if you've really been catching up, we believe that there's a rare situation where you would actually act as a transaction coordinator. So what is the property address? Is it city, township, or village of? We're filling in all the blanks. What's the list price? What's the list date? Do we know the expiration date? If it's our listing, we have that. If we don't, we're not going to be able to get the expiration date and it would not matter. Is this a coming soon? Is it global luxury? Is it a one-party listing? Is it a short sale if those terms don't make sense? Again, as you review this, put a question mark by these things. Talk with your broker manager in regards to them. Now, obviously, it's your listing. This is all your information. If this is not your listing, you simply do a search, do an agent search in the MLS, and you'll get all the information you need to be able to complete the information about the listing agent. Again, if this is you, we don't need this last part filled out. But if this is not your listing, it's your sale, we do want to know what your thoughts are regarding this agent. Should they be recruited? Do they fit the culture of our company? Would they be a great fit within your office? Seller's information, we're going to put in what we can get through public information. If this is your seller, you're going to have all of this information. If you're not, then we're going to ignore this first part, but if this is your seller, where did you get the seller? What is the source of the business? Complete all the information. I don't have to tell you what this stuff means. Just listed postcards. If this is your listing, then you have 25 free postcards that can be sent out at no cost to you. If so, you click yes. There's a rare circumstance where I think you may click no. When might that be? If for some reason you're doing a commercial or retail, it may not make sense to send out just listed postcards. The other time that I've run into it and had reality hit me was in the event where I had a rental that was completed. It went out just sold. Well, rental listings are not just sold. They're just leased. But our postcards don't get changed for leases, therefore. Make sure that you think about it from that direction. Now, if you said yes, let's go ahead and send these out. Do you want any additional past the 25? They go out at 90 cents each. Who's the listing title company? We know our primary titles or primary partners are CBP Title, ATA Title, and Superior Title. You do have an opportunity to, if there is an other, that you complete that. Who's the contact, the phone number, and the email address for that. Again, don't take it for granted that we have that information. This is the quick look where we can go to find out, to be able to assist you for many, many different reasons. But complete it in its entirety. Now, seller existing loans, is property free and clear? No, then that means there's a first mortgage. Put in who the lender is. Is there a second mortgage on it? If not, no. If there is, then yes, we're going to put a lender in here. Is there existing land contract? Most likely not if we have a first mortgage. Is the payoff letter attached? Normally it's not, but no, if you have a land contract, we do need to get copies of all of that and the information that goes with it. Is there a trust involved with this? If so, who is the trust? What is the trust or LLC name? And will the seller be at the closing? And by the way, I think that's a good one for you to know or be able to find out. We can't always assume. There are situations where we know the seller may not be at closing, and therefore we're going to need a power of attorney, or we know that we're going to have a remote closing. If it is a trust, do we have a copy of the trust? If we do, check it off. If not, you know you need to do it. Well, listen, by the way, is there a need for a death certificate? If it's yes, is it attached? Divorce decree, if it's yes, then it should be attached. We need that. Are there special assessments on the property? Make sure that we take a look. So this is not just a, hey, we want to know this information, but it also becomes a checklist for you to verify for the information you need to be able to complete this listing or this transaction. Even if this is on the other side, we should be checking just to make sure no special assessments are required. Then the other aspect of it, what's the purchase agreement say? But if this, again, when are you turning this in? What side are you on? Is it assumable or not? If we've got it addressed on the purchase agreement, was it assumed or no? Moving on to page 2, just the additional information. Is there city water and city sewer? Or is it on well and septic? If it's well and septic, and guys, you can see literally what I'm doing. Was the inspection completed at the time that you've turned this in? There are municipalities, counties within our service areas, Washtenaw, Shiawassee, Macomb are 3 of them where if there's well and septic, there is a required inspection. Is it new construction? Is it a manufactured home? If you're not certain, you need to find out what a manufactured home is versus modular or just standard stick-built homes. Homeowners Association, yes or no? Who's the contact? What's the phone number? What's the fee? And what's their email? And is it done annually or is it monthly? So guys, again, if it's on here, get the information. All parties to the transaction can use this information to be able to find it quickly. Now, this then becomes your checklist. It is the checklist for the forms that you need to submit to make sure that we have a complete file at the time. So if this is your listing, these are the things that you want to be able to check off and say that, yes, I have these. These are the things I need to have. This will give me a complete file when I turn it in, and nobody's going to give me a hard time, and we're going to know that all things are set. Now, if it's a pending, If it's a pending, here's where we're going. What's the contract date? This is going to be initialed by your manager. They've reviewed the file. And then it's the information. Is this you or is it another agent on the other side of a transaction? Was it your listing sold by someone else? Bottom line, again, do the search. If this is outside of our company, are they a recruit or not? Should we have them or not? In this case, if I were the selling agent, I happen to be one that I work with my bride, and I would put her name down in this spot. If it was someone else, and I use the example of Sally Hendricks and Stephen Scott. They work together as a team. They are going to work that as a co-agent. They're going to put in what's the source. Again, if it's our buyer, we put it in. If it's not our buyer, we're not going to know what the source is. But let's pretend it's our buyer. Let's complete all of the information all the way through. We have a purchase agreement. We know the type of financing that's involved. We then should also know who's the mortgage company, who's the mortgage officer, what's their contact information. And just because we have the pre-approval letter as part of the file, put the information, transfer it over and get it onto this form for, again, all the reasons that we've talked about. Are there concessions? If the concessions are, we'll call it 3% of $300,000, then put 3% and put the $9,000 here. Calculate it out. We can do that. If for some reason you had a land contract, we know that you got your broker manager involved, but we're going to put in the key information that surrounds that land contract. Who's handling the title insurance on the mortgage side? So let's complete this to the fullest extent and then address what a split closing is. So here, guys, when we talk about the split closing, what we know is a potential split closing exists when there are two title insurance policies being issued. Now, the one that always gets issued because it's a term of the purchase agreement is the owner's policy of title insurance. Owner's policy being provided by the seller to the buyer. If there's financing involved, then here's what we know. The buyer is going to buy a mortgage policy of title insurance to be provided to the mortgage company. Therefore, two policies, the potential that we have two separate title companies. If we have those two separate title companies, that is a split closing. Now what we know, we have a title company on the buyer side, a title company that's on the seller side. Page 1, page 2, we know who the title companies are, and this becomes a simple yes. But remember this, if there is no mortgage, there is no mortgage policy of title insurance, there is only an owner's policy, therefore there is one that's provided by the seller. If you're on the listing side of it, that's our title company that we're going to be using. If you're on the buyer side of it, and your buyer's paying cash or there's seller financing, we don't have to worry about it because there's only that one title policy. Moving along, looking at it from the aspect of a lease, is it not applicable? But if we do have one, then it's a copy of the lease. We should have an inventory checklist, which is really just a checklist as to the condition of the property. Protect the seller, protect the tenant, and find out what the condition of the property is, what's the monthly rent, what's the security deposit to go along with that. Is it a lease with option? And guys, if you've got a lease with option, please, please, please make sure that your broker manager is involved in that. Then we're addressing the terms of that to go along with it. First right of refusal, rare. But if you ever have one, you know what to do. Get your broker and manager involved in it before you're actually completing this, unless you have the listing. Get the broker manager involved up front. Let's see. Attorney packages. Are they required? If so, who for? Guys, normally it's really simple. We're checking off none. Because typically an attorney is not involved in a transaction. There's nothing that they need to review prior to. Buyer, a U.S. citizen, yes or no? Guys, ask. We know previously with sellers we've asked due to the listing contract, but find out whether or not we have a U.S. citizen. Now, back to the aspect of the attorney package, if there is one, who is the attorney, what is their address, what's their contact phone and email? We need to be able to get this so that the title companies can prepare things and get it out to the attorneys. Is a power of attorney necessary? If so, who for? If none is necessary, guys, complete this in the fullest extent. Check none. That way we know that you know. And if you can't check off none, then you need to find out or make sure. What's the type of buyer? And of course, here's our checklist for making sure that we've turned in all of the appropriate forms that should accompany a purchase agreement which has been completed. Now, I will throw this out. People have asked, why do we need a pre-approval? Because it's the protection of ourselves, our company, if this is our buyers, to help them, because let's make sure that we're not wasting anybody's time. Collect it up front if you're representing the buyer. If it's your listing, get it at the time of the offer. Again, there's nothing worse than going 2-3 weeks only to find out that the buyer shouldn't have been making an offer in the first place. So get your pre-approval, get your proof of funds before you accept an offer or before you begin working with the buyer. And just let them know it will be necessary because the list agent and the seller will want this information before they accept an offer. It's about them reducing their risk. Bottom line, guys, again, check it off your pending file. Make sure that you got everything complete. Turn in a complete package. Now, the obvious, the closing portion of it, the closing date, it's on the purchase agreement. It says to close on or before. That's the date that goes in here. Sales price, earnest money deposit. Closing location, I'm going to say at this point of completing this, you could assume it's going to be at the listing agent or listing broker's office. Are we holding the earnest money deposit? If the answer is yes, we're good to go. If the answer is no, then here's what we know. You should have on the purchase agreement who is holding it, or it's on an addendum somewhere stating who is holding it. As far as taxes, normally, and our purchase agreement is boilerplate, we are going to prorate taxes as if they are paid in advance. However, there are areas where they are treated as if paid in arrears, and it should be checked as such. But at the same point, there may be a time where you actually, for the benefit of one or both parties, have no prorations. You may have an area where they're treated as if paid in advance, and yet you put it as arrears. Bottom line is, check it off as to what's appropriate based upon what is agreed upon with the purchase agreement, because it is the ruling document. Escrows, occupancy. Is it at close or is it due at another time? If it is, and let's say I'm going to put 30 days here. Is there rent escrow? If so, how much is that? So let's say it's $30 a day. That would be $900, but it's 1.5 times. With our purchase agreement, it states that 1.5 times will be held. So 30 times 30 is 900. 1.5 times would be 1,350. And that's what goes in this blank. Water sewer, your purchase agreement now says you got to specify how much that is. So what did you put in there for that amount? Commissions, Commission based on the sale price? Or was it approved to be commission on the sale price minus concessions? Final amount of the concessions? Put the amount down. Commission due? Calculate the amount out. Based at? Was there any additional money that was being paid? Those are commissions. Are you part of closing services? By the way, if you don't know the answer to that, you're not part of closing services. Is it a referral? If so, who is the company? Now guys, this could be within our own CBP, that could be with our, our partner companies, our sister companies within Century 21. That could be somebody that's coming through the relocation department. Whatever the referral fee is, we're going to put in here. And then the big key is just know also, not to be forgotten, if you're new and you have the mentor, put the mentor's name in here. Now let's break down to the compliance fee. Compliance fee is $395. That's for everyone except if you received a buyer or seller through the relocation department. The fee is waived. If you have a VA buyer, the fee is waived. Other than that, a seller whom we represent is going to pay it. A buyer whom we represent is going to pay it. Who pays it is either going to be the seller or the agent. If you are going to pay it, it's going to be done this way. Automatically deducted from your commission check. So it's going to come out automatically if you reflect on this. Now, here's the real key part. This is the nice part. For leases, it's reduced to $145. So keep that one in mind. You don't want to forget about that and then end up having to pay it because you don't want to go back and collect it from the tenant or the landlord. The home warranty, is there one or is there not one? If so, is it covered for the buyer or is it for the buyer and the seller? What is the title company? How much? Get the confirmation number. You need to get that in advance so that the buyer is covered. Put that in place. Executed application must be paid for by. Now, who's paying it? Because the buyer can, the seller can, the listing agent can, the seller can, but who's responsible for being able to pay that? And then you have the waiver. Is it the buyer or seller, or buyer and seller, are they both waiving it? You have the just sold postcards now. Again, 25 of these will go out free, just like it was when I discussed it on the listing. You are almost always going to take those 25, and then it's just a matter of how many more do you want at 87 cents each. If you want the luxury postcards going out for the just sold, they're a little bit more, they're a little bit larger, but put in how much or how many of those you would want. Continuity program is your follow-up program. Who do you want it for? The buyer, the seller, or both? And just know that it describes the program down here at the bottom. You are going to check the 3-year or the 5-year, and this describes how many touch points you actually get through that program. So guys, that is the broker requirement form. Again, always fill it out completely, turn in a complete package, and here's the only way that you really have to use this. By going out and talking to people. Get contracts signed, guys. Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.